Yes, we are back with a third episode, a second in this international break, and I'll be giving my Premier League team of the season so far, but with a twist. I'm joined by Triple M, who will be giving his, either agreeing with me or countering me. If you haven't already, please check out his YouTube channel and drop a sub, and if you haven't given me a sub already, well, I guess you should do so now. Here's something different. I'll start in goal, and there were many options here, but I've decided to go with Edouard Mendy. He has been immense for Chelsea this season and has only conceded 4 goals. I read somewhere that he has an insane save percentage of 90%. Astonishing, to be honest. The two centre-backs for me were a no-brainer in Antonio Rudiger and Joel Matip. The former has also been a critical part of Chelsea's defence, and the latter this season has been superb alongside Van Dijk, arguably better. Over to you, Triple M.
I think Mendy's a really good shout. I think Mendy's the type of keeper that doesn't get credit from rival fans. I've heard rival fans try to sneak Ramsdale into the conversation. I've heard United fans try to sneak De Gea into the conversation, and Liverpool fans will probably try to sneak Alisson into the conversation. But I think Mendy, what makes him so special is that if you actually watch Chelsea, they're not that solid defensively. I mean, Paul Scholes was on about this and he got absolutely cooked for saying that out of the top 4 teams, being Manchester United, Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea have the worst defense, which isn't true. We have the worst defense out of those 4 teams. But he was basically saying that Chelsea aren't that good defensively. And it's true. Like, they concede a lot of shots per game and they concede a lot of chances. There's periods where they look like they're genuinely under an insurmountable amount of pressure, and Mendy comes to the rescue time and time again. And it's not just in the Premier League, by the way. In the Champions League, he's been impeccable as well. So I think Mendy has been nothing short of remarkable, and his contributions to Chelsea keeping so many clean sheets does not get spoken about enough from rival fans. So Mendy's a fantastic shout. You got to put him in there. With regards to Rudiger and Matip, I think Matip is the type of player who isn't the most aesthetically pleasing on the ball, right? He's very lanky, very tall. You know, he just doesn't fit the billing. He's not the most fashionable defender. And so I think Matip doesn't get the credit he deserves. But when you look at what's happening at Liverpool, Van Dijk, people weren't really sure if he was going to be 100% coming into the season. They signed Konate, which was an awkward signing because it was their only signing of the transfer window. People weren't sure if Gomez was going to come back and be to his best. Matip has really stepped up in a time where people didn't expect him to, because he's had a bad history with injuries, and I think if it wasn't for the injuries, he would be one of Liverpool's best defenders consistently. So Matip is a really good shout. Rudiger, I have to agree with you with Rudiger 100%. Like, Rudiger for me is one of my favorite Chelsea players at the moment. I think he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I think he's been underrated for a very long time. I don't think he suddenly just became good for Chelsea. I think he's always been good for Chelsea. It's just people are finally starting to give him the credit he deserves. So yeah.
Next, we have the fullbacks, and there was a plethora of options, with names like Chilwell, Alexander-Arnold, Livramento, and others going around, but I've gone for Reece James at right back and João Cancelo at left back. The Chelsea born and bred has 6 goals and assists this season and has been thriving under Tuchel. Cancelo seems to be defying Pep's constant rotation at the moment, and his great form has seen him play in every game so far. Untruffable. What's your thoughts on this, Triple M?
Reece James is a really good shout. I think Reece James doesn't really get the respect he deserves, and I honestly can see why somebody would put Reece James in here ahead of someone like a Trent, ahead of someone like a Chilwell. So I get it, right? But for me, I'm going to put Trent in simply because of his contributions to Liverpool going forward. And yes, being a right back isn't just about what you do going forward. It is about your defensive work. But as I've always said, Trent isn't as bad defensively as people make out. And whilst Reece James is definitely the more balanced right back between the two, I think when you take into context Liverpool's season, I think Trent is very much the type of player that season rests on. Yes, you could make the case for Salah, you could make the case for Fabinho, and you could make the case for Van Dijk being more important than Trent. I get that, but for me, alongside those players, Trent has to have a good season, because what he offers them going forward is so key to them winning games. Like, it's unbelievable how much chance creation comes from Trent alone, right? Like, how much productivity he offers going forward. So I'm gonna have to go with Trent, but either way, I think you can't really be wrong with this, because I think Reece James has been immense, and everybody knows, if you interact with me on Twitter or if you interact with me in general about football, I do like Reece James, okay? So this isn't me saying that Reece James is trash or anything like that. But Cancelo, I think Cancelo's a good shout as well. I think Cancelo's a player who doesn't really get talked about. I mean, Man City players in general don't really get talked about, isn't it? Like, we're kind of bored of them winning the Premier League, so we don't even pay attention to their players. But I think Cancelo's a really good shout. Yeah, I'd put Cancelo there.
We shift into the midfield, and at CDM, I have Declan Rice. He has the most interceptions, blocks, tackles, possession 1, highest passing accuracy and successful passes in the Premier League this season. A no-brainer really. To accompany him in the middle of the park, I would go with Conor Gallagher, who has 4 goals to his name this season, and Mateo Kovacic, a man who is back to his best this season with 6 goals and assists. Any disagreements there?
I think Declan Rice is a really good shout. I think Declan Rice is a player that people sort of debate about what his best position is. I've seen some people saying he's a box-to-box player. I think some people have said he's a 6. I think he's got the qualities to do both, and I think that's what makes him all the more impressive. I think when he plays for England, he's a lot more suppressed, and so people don't really notice what value he brings to the team. And again, it's about this confusion of what his position actually is, but I think he does both really, really well. He's a hybrid between a 6 and a box-to-box midfielder. He works perfectly in a double pivot, and I think in West Ham's system in particular, he's one of the most important players, and I think he gets really criticized because of the British tax and the British hype surrounding him. So people just kind of assume because he's English, he's overhyped, but I think he's had a really good season. I think he's been really important for West Ham, and I would put Declan Rice in there for sure. Kovacic, I'm not too sure about that one. I might get cooked for this, but I would put Jorginho in ahead of Kovacic, just because when I've watched Chelsea, I think when Jorginho's come on, he's had far more of an impact. Even someone like N'Golo Kante, yeah, you may not be able to put him in the team of the season, but I think he's had more of an impact. But I don't know. I might get cooked for that. I'm also about to get cooked for this next person I'm going to put in. Instead of Gallagher, I'm going to go with Bruno Fernandes. I know. The reason why is because I think in a time where Manchester United are struggling, he has provided time and time again either a goal or an assist. And yes, you can say football is not just about goals and assists, and that is 100% true. But at the end of the day, goals and assists win you games. And if your attacking midfielder is able to produce that on a consistent basis, as well as Bruno Fernandes has been able to do it, for me, they warrant being in a team of the season. That's just my opinion. Don't cook me in the comments below. But yeah, over to you.
That Fernandes shout is kind of iffy, but I can understand the claim that he should be in this team. Concluding in attack, and on the right, it's no surprise that I'm going with Mohamed Salah, the leading goal scorer and probably the best player in the world at the moment. 10 goals already has proved any previous doubt about him wrong, and he isn't anywhere near finished. Can he break his record? To partner him, I'd go with Mikel Antonio up front, who has been pivotal for West Ham, even when he isn't scoring the goals. And on the left, I would play Rafinha, who isn't traditionally a left winger, but I couldn't leave him out. 5 goals in 10 appearances, in and out of injury, the Brazilian has been carrying Leeds in the absence of Patrick Bamford. He definitely deserved a spot in my team. Back to you, Triple M.
Mohamed Salah has been impeccable for Liverpool, and I don't see how anybody can deny or go against some of the contributions he's made for Liverpool, not just in the last few weeks, but over the last 3 years. So I think he walks into that team and basically picks himself, and there's no need to say anymore because he's a Liverpool player and I'm a United fan, so I hate talking about how good he is for Liverpool, but he really, really is. I don't know about being the best player in the world. Maybe that's a video for another day, but right now, right here, I think he's the best attacking player in the Premier League, and so he has to be in that team. In the middle, you've gone with Mikel Antonio, and that is a really good shot. I think he's been in impeccable form. I mean, he scored a great goal for Jamaica just a couple of days ago in a World Cup qualifier, I believe it was, so he is amazing. But I'm going to go with Jamie Vardy. Reason being, I think Jamie Vardy has been immense for Leicester City. I think when you look at the upward trajectory of Leicester City at the moment, that is in part because of how consistent Jamie Vardy is. Every time he's been injured, every time he's been unavailable for whatever reason, you've noticed the drop-off with Leicester City. He really is a big character in that dressing room, and on the pitch, I think his contributions cannot be denied. Now, on the right-hand side, I'm basically asking to get a lot of hate in the comments at this point. Like, this is basically hate bait for your video, but I'm actually going to go with Mane. Listen, I know I'm going to go with Mane. I think Rafinha's been amazing, right? Don't get me wrong, and I wouldn't argue with anyone who puts Rafinha in there, but this is about opinion. For me, I'm going to put Mane in there, and the reason why is because I think Mane has been just as important for Liverpool as some of the other players. Maybe not as much as a Mo Salah. I think Mo Salah is a bit better than Mane, but he's been important for Liverpool because when you watch Liverpool, they're not a one-dimensional team. They don't just attack down the left-hand side. They attack down both sides, and I think Mane doesn't get the credit he deserves because of all the failed compilations that have been made about him and the fact that he's become a bit of a meme because he misses sitters for a living. But when you take away the sitters, he's been really important for Liverpool, not just in terms of goals and assists, but his hold-up play. He offers an extra option out on that wide side. He really is an important player for Liverpool, and I don't think people respect him enough. You know, I really don't, but that's just me.
Here are our teams of the season so far. What's yours? Write it down in the comment section down below. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out Triple M's channel. Hopefully this is the start of many collaborations to come. This week, football returns, and I have to say that there are several nice fixtures. Leicester vs Chelsea is the early kickoff, and I think the Blues will snatch a 1-0 win. Potentially Lukaku upon his return to the side. Liverpool against Arsenal, and despite the Gunners returning to form, I believe that Klopp will take his side to a 2-0 win. Finally, Spurs against Leeds sees defence against attack, but I'm going for Conte to get his first point with Tottenham through a 3-0 win. That's all for now, but until next time, goodbye.